Yeah, we're out here in my persimmon orchard, I call it that. And it's going to take about a 10-minute walk here. Show you some stuff. Kind of doing this for two reasons. One, it might be interesting to the group, but two, so I have a record of how things progress over the years. I've been doing this for a while. So this is a native seed-grown persimmon tree. And I've hacked on this thing for a long time. This is a tree that I use to graft for if I just want a high-producing wildlife tree, because this thing is just so loaded with persimmons over here. I mean, you can see that. I gotta take down the magnification here, turn this thing down. Okay, so yeah, this thing's just, every year it's loaded, and this tree's just got thousands of persimmons on it. It's just loaded. Get up on the top, and it's probably gonna snap off some branches. It's just filthy loaded with persimmons. And now I started off, I planted a bunch of these persimmons kind of like for a wildlife planting out here. I didn't really intend to take it to an orchard. I wasn't interested in the trees. I didn't know anything about them, and these really served to give me some really nice rootstock when I finally did discover the world of persimmons. But this tree, I think it's cloned, because there's about 3 or 4 other ones around here that produce. There's a really tall one, kind of similarly, not necessarily every year, but every year a couple of them at least are loaded like this one. But it's just you can just see them. It's just loaded with persimmons in there. Okay, so we move on, and this is, try to take this down. Okay, so this is the graft I did, and this is most of these are going to be whip and tongue, but this is a kusu, and I got that one planted there too. So I read that they're kind of a really good, again, wildlife tree from the standpoint of producing a lot, just a lot of fruits, you know. And this is kind of a double graft I did. I got Rosianka and Yates on here, I think. Is that right? Yates. Well, I had them backwards, but yeah. So I didn't think this one had made it, and you can tell it didn't have much going on. But I thought this graft died, and it's one of those that kind of came along late in the game and proved me wrong. It did take this here. This is a second year Yates graft, and you can see this one's almost gotten as thick as the tree now. And that was a cleft graft, and that tree will have that'll have persimmons on it next year. And let's walk around the other side real quick. I've got one tree out of just thousands and thousands that I have on my farm here that has produced persimmons that I care to propagate, because they are stand out, both unique and desirable. And this is it. I posted about it, I think last year, but this is, I call my chief red eagle after my great grandfather, who was a Creek Indian. His name is William Weatherford, aka Red Eagle. You can look him up. He's so important that he's got a Wikipedia page. But again, this one I kind of discovered late, so it's not a tree I planted, but they're big. They don't really taste any better than a regular persimmon, but they're big and very attractive looking fruit. And I think this tree is a clone of it. This one, see if get a picture. Yeah, there's some that aren't in the shade. I mean, I don't know if you can kind of tell, but they're not like really large, but they are larger than normal, and especially for this time of year, they're not done growing. And again, there's quite a bit on it, and I pecked on this tree pretty hard to get scions, and I did graft a few too. I've got a few growing. Okay, come over the other side here, and this is we got this is Barber's Blush right here, and a couple really nice grafts. I didn't really care to do 2 grafts on this tree, but I kind of do 2 or 3 or more if I can, kind of to ensure that I do get a take, but I'll leave that alone. And these are some trees, again, kind of the original plantings that I've kind of thinned out and and kept space between to kind of baby these trees. But this is nothing special here. It's a female tree, and it's got quite a bit of persimmons on it. But I think I'm going to eventually take that one down and graft to it. I've show you this. Some of my failures. I've tried to graft this twice, and they failed. And it wasn't because the grafts didn't take. They got blown over in the storm. They got snapped off in a thunderstorm, I think last July. Okay, and this is I kind of label these native females by when they tend to drop fruit. So that's a December tree. And this here is a so I got Dr. Kazas, and that's grafted onto a November producing female. So this is a graft from this year, and it's a cleft graft. I think you can see that. And I did a cleft there, and I got another smaller cleft up here. I'll probably just, I don't know what I'm going to do with this yet, but then you can see my November tree again. This one just, I mean, there's freaking fruit everywhere. And I will say that wow, look at that. I didn't even notice that. Look how many fruits are on that thing. But this is kind of what I learned this year. Is I do think that persimmons tend to alternate, you know, heavy production years versus thin, because some of these trees, well, my production was so poor last year that I had to go get seeds somewhere else. So that I had persimmons, I just didn't have enough. Now, that's an interesting tree, and that these persimmons are a lot smaller than normal. Again, it's a seed grown tree. This isn't any particular variety, and this one's a November drop too. But let's pick a couple of these off, and we'll compare them to some other varieties I got here. And I don't know what this tree is here. I don't even have this one labeled, so it must not be anything too spectacular. I'm surprised I didn't graft that with something. And then this is just a male, and I'm going to leave it. I want to keep the males going, so I don't have a whole lot of them, but I'm going to keep some males around there. That's a big one too. You see, come here to my dogs. That's a 20-footer. And what we got here? I got another since October. And I'm kind of making the reason I've got these labeled by month is I'm planning on selling trees based on their drop months. Hunters like to know, deer hunters like to know when the fruit's going to drop, and my idea is to buy 5 trees and have them drop all of the months, all the way through January. I hope January through October or September is 5 months. Give me plus or minus 1 on my math there. This tree here is now this is an October drop tree, but this tree here just doesn't have any fruit on it. I think there's a very few. You know, there's I see one there somewhere. Yeah, but there's just a few fruits on that one. Not a lot. Not a whole lot of fruit on that. I don't know what I got going there. Okay, now this is a Yates. It's a Yates variety, and let's back this up. So this is a 3rd year, and this thing, it's not real big, but man, it is thick of fruit. And look at this. That's a Yates compared to like one of my seed growed ones. You guys see the difference in size. Yeah, this thing's full of fruit, and I've got several Yates trees like this, just loaded with fruit. And you know, obviously here's my graft. Proud of these. These are the ones that, you know, exciting to see. I know I've noticed in the group, I think that there's a lot of people that are still in the stage where beginners, and even though they're in it for a couple of years, have yet to see and compare the different fruits they're grafting. I think most of the group, I don't know if I'm right, but I think most of the group is people that are in the beginning stages and just don't have a lot of trees. That's a chinkapin tree. Don't have a lot of trees to the stage where they've tasted and are familiar with a lot of different varieties, and I think that's cool too. You know, there's very few things on earth that we know of, that we're aware of, that we haven't really gotten our hands into as a species and torn apart and left anything left for some explorers. So that's one thing that I think is really cool about persimmons is most of the discovering seems to be yet to come, and you know, we're in something that doesn't have a lot of answers. You can't Google much on it. That's kind of frustrating, but it's also kind of cool. You have to admit that you try to buy a certain type of scion wood and there's no information at all, and what do? You buy it anyway, don't you? This is another Yates. Obviously, Yates was my first one that I had, so most of my stuff is Yates. But I do have about 20 varieties altogether. But it's a big male, another big male right there, and then this is a nice native that just started producing a couple years ago, and it's a big tree, but it just didn't produce until really later in life, as the native non-grafted trees do. Now this is a Hershey Blue right here that I did 3 different cleft grafts on it. You can kind of see how I've got that tied up for insurance against the storm, and I just cut the tops of them off. If this is in my yard, I'd spend a lot more time kind of on each individual tree, but some of these places I don't get to a whole lot. So, oh, and this is another Yates, and it's going to have a lot of very delicious fruit on it. It's just loaded with fruit. Again, you can see the size difference here between just a wild grown persimmon and Yates, just how much bigger they are. A little bit bigger than golf balls. Some are quite a bit bigger than golf balls. No, I said this one was a male, but it's not. It's got fruit on it, so I guess it's another female. But that's about it. I've got this growing on the edge of my wetlands. It's kind of like a state program where I took field and took it out of that, which is corn, and I turned it into a wildlife sanctuary. And actually, they don't like me having these persimmon trees because they don't want any trees, but I do it anyway. I want to show you one more thing here. This is again just kind of wildlife planting I did probably close to 20 years ago, and some of these trees, I guess because they grew inside of the they grew in the shade kind of under this canopy. Well, I guess you can't see from this side, but I got some trees over there I planted that are probably approaching 40 feet tall, and I mean there's a top one there, but I was hoping to see the fruit, but you can't see it from that side. But quite a few of them that are dropping fruit this year, and again, you know, it took them over 15 years to produce their first persimmon, just because they're limited by the shade of the canopy. So I got a bunch of cypress on this side of the wetlands, and I got some other varieties on the. I'm going to stop this video, but on the other side, I've got Zimacurma, I've got Osage, I've got Zimacurma. Oh, Lena. I've got Lena variety growing over there. And on the other side of my farm, I've got some. Well, I guess I know I got a lot more. It's not coming to mind. So that's me blabbering on while I'm just taking a walk after work here. And again, I I put these in YouTube. I'm not trying to get a following. I'm not trying to do a YouTube channel. I just put them there because it's a good place to put videos that kind of, so far, don't disappear. And I like to go back and compare them over the years. And this is my 2024 kind of pre-harvest video. And I'll say goodbye.